For some people, shoulder pain, rotator cuff pain, and pec pain are synonymous with performing the bench press. And no matter how many reps of this you do while you're home alone, while your wife is out at the gay bar getting wine drunk with her coworkers, that pain is always going to be there unless you fix a couple of things. Hi, I'm Patrick, mildly autistic, and also I bench 600 pounds.
This is going to be an all-around better attempt.
Wow. I thought that looked better. And I don't know as much technical terms as you do.
He just yawned. He just yawned.
So you might as well shut up and listen to me for a little bit. There are 3.5 reasons why you're probably experiencing shoulder, rotator cuff, or pec pain while performing the bench press. One of them is form issues, a very glaringly obvious form issue. Another is lack of strength in the stabilizers associated with performing the bench press. And 3 is a lack of elasticity in the aforementioned muscle groups. And 4, you tried to replace all liquids in your diet with either energy drinks or coffee, which are both diuretics and will expel water out of your system much faster than you can replenish it. So you're just dehydrated and you need to get more water in your system. Just throw some Crystal Light in there. It makes it tasty. The first thing we're going to talk about today is that form issue that we mentioned literally like 2 seconds ago. And what happens is your touch position on the bench press is too high, too nipply, for lack of a better term. And where you want the touch position is somewhere on your top ab. And I'll show you what I mean in a moment. In a basic sense, what's going on is your touch position is going really high up. And your elbows only have a certain range of motion that they can go like this before it starts stressing other systems out. When your elbows flare a little early, like at the bottom of a bench, where instead they need to be tucked to keep your lats engaged, that's when you kind of get that stress on your shoulders, your rotator cuffs, and your pecs. So let me show you what I mean. So watch my elbows as I come in too high. Notice how they're starting out going out, and they're flaring, and I'm touching around nipple position. And notice how they're almost all the way out. And they're pointing, they're under the bar, and they're flared out. Whereas if we take a more optimal approach, where we've got good cues going on, notice how the elbows don't really flare. And then when you press, they flare a little bit. There's an optimal point in which your elbows can flare. So when you're coming in too high, they start to flare early and you lose all the power off your chest. And then you can kind of like pop it a little bit, but you're not going to be able to complete a full bench press. So what you want is somewhere between here, which is the top of my top ab, and here, which is the bottom of my top ab. But you want to be careful that your elbows are still in front of the bar, because if your elbows get behind the bar, then the bar can roll out under you, and that's not good. That's how you get stapled by a bench. So performing a good bench press, let me reset up a little bit, because when you bench wrong, your lats get a little soft and out of position to compensate for your improper range of motion. So that was at the bottom of my top ab, and here's what it looks like at the top of my top ab. You're going to want to play around with where you feel the most powerful. It's going to feel a little trippy, especially if you're used to nippling yourself, where you're used to coming up high. And now that you're pressing it out a little bit, you're going to have to get used to having your elbows controlling where they are, kind of tucking them and pulling with your lats to keep the structure rigid. You want to make sure that the bar doesn't get out in front of your elbows, and you want to be able to kind of feel that tension and pressure in your triceps as opposed to your shoulders and your rotator cuffs. And that flaring of the elbows early actually pulls the pecs out a little bit more and strains them a lot, which can lead to pec tears, which I've personally experienced, and that's not fun to come back from. So shoulders, rotator cuffs, and pecs are in a compromised position when you touch too high. when you can guillotine yourself. That's not a good thing to happen. I'm going to show you what it looks like from the side as well, because the flaring isn't super obvious from a top down. That was just to get a good idea as to where the touch position should be. So we'll go through it again for you visual learners out there. So we got a good setup, and then bring it in too high. Notice how the elbows almost go straight out, and you kind of lose a lot of the tricep in it. So you've got to compensate with other things such as pec and rotator cuff. And pec and rotator cuff aren't meant to be, well, the pec is meant for this spot, but it's supposed to be helped out by the tricep, and you've completely gotten rid of the tricep at this point. But if you tuck your lats and you bend the bar, spread the bar, notice how the elbows stay in a strong position. You still got a lot of tricep initiated, and the elbows don't flare until it's supposed to at the transition point from the pec and tricep to the shoulder and bicep area. So if you go too high, you're isolating the triceps from the movement, and you're not as powerful off the chest, but you also have a reduced range of motion here, especially if you're fat like me with a big belly. And you can also put all of your air in your belly to give yourself even less range of motion. So if you're a competitive powerlifter, you just float it here, control it, and you get a fast press command. And you can also bring it to the top of the ab as well. You get a similar result, and it's not as trippy where you're like, whoa, the bar's going to come out of my hands. I hope that side visual helped as well. So that visual and that bench press cue as to where the touch position should be is the main thing going wrong with a lot of the pec, the shoulder, and rotator cuff injuries. You're taking your tricep out of the movement, and you're kind of impeding yourself, and you keep trying to load up more and more and more, but that's just stressing the pec and the rotator cuff out more and more and more, which can lead to all the tears in the world. But once you get into it and you're strong, and you get to a point where your form is good and it's not stressing out entirely on that, you still do need some sort of strength and elasticity in your rotator cuffs and in your shoulders. So we're going to go over a couple of accessory movements that are good at building those rotator cuffs and shoulders, those stabilizers that are going to help you add pounds to your bench, build a more stable base on your bench so that you can kind of diving board off of the gains that you make with your shoulders and your rotator cuffs into bigger and bigger PRs. So if you go to a PT or any sort of fitness professional, quote unquote, kinesiologist, whatever, someone who is designed to fix problems with your body, you go and you say, hey, I have a rotator cuff injury or this or that. If you don't have a full tear, you can rehabilitate your rotator cuff with this specific, they're going to give you this, and it's almost like you go to WebMD, my shoulder hurts, do this, it's going to help. And it's a really light accessory movement. So it's not one of those bread and butter, it's always going to be in your program. It's one of those, if you need it, if you need more elasticity, if you're feeling a lot of chest tightness when doing the bench, or you're having instability issues, you're going to want to add this into your training program. And it's a very light. I only have 10 pounds on here. And when I personally do it in my own program, I only have about 20 to 25 pounds on here. So this is internal or external rotations. The cues are the same. It's just the direction that you're facing is different. So this will be external rotation. So you set up the cable at about the same level as your elbow. And you want to basically glue your elbow to your side. You want to flex your lat a little bit so that you know that you're really drilling into that and you can feel it in your rotator cuff. So what you do is you kind of let the weight pull you. This is going to stretch it out a little bit and then compress, get as much range of motion, making sure that your elbow is still in contact with your side. And you can still feel that lat tightness. And then slowly let the eccentric kind of pull you back to that stretch position. And then just repeat. And this is one of those exercises you're going to want to do for like 20 to 25 reps. And you want to go this slow. And it's like, you want to feel the stretch for a moment or two, explode out, feel the compression, and kind of get a slow eccentric, feeling almost like an iso hold at every range of motion within the movement. So that's an external rotation. And to do the other side, you would just hop on the other side and do it with this side. But we're going to do internal rotations, and since the camera's set up there and it's a better angle with this good side facing you guys because I'm handsome on this side, forget the other side. Same cues. You want to glue your elbow to your side and feel that lat pressure. And you want to feel the stretch in your rotator cuff. It's going to feel a little bit in your armpit as well. And explode, feel that contraction, and slowly let it go. And this is going to get blood flowing to your rotator cuffs. But if the explosion is a little too stressful on your rotator cuff, slow it down. You don't want to be jerking your rotator cuff around, but you want the eccentric to be slow, and you want to feel that stretch in your rotator cuff as well as the fatiguing going on during that slow eccentric. Basically, what the slow eccentric is it's getting an iso hold at every range of motion. But the most important part about accessory movements is that it's stretching under a load. So you want the full range of motion. You want to get as much of this internal rotation going on. You feel the stretch externally, whereas on the external rotation, you feel the stretch internally. It's just the movement is internal and the other is external. But that stretch is going to build up elasticity in your rotator cuff. And that's the most important part. The strength is going to come. But one of the things that's hardest to build up is elasticity in the muscles. And that comes from stretching. And accessory movements are stretching under a load. So the more that you approach your accessories as if it's like stretching under a load, the more elasticity you're going to build up. And in the long run, you'll have less injuries. So you'll have more power built up and you'll get stronger and stronger as you progress through these things. But it's obviously, it's one of those like really lightweight kind of PT. You're not supposed to really be like balls to the walls like the old Ronnie Coleman videos. It's one of those like fine tuning, like almost like Picasso artist getting the fine details in the last little strokes of his painting, making sure everything's perfect. But that is the rotator cuff specific movements that'll help build up both strength and elasticity. So kind of hitting those last two, ignore the half you're dehydrated part, because I mean, everyone's dehydrated. You just got to stop drinking so much energy drinks. But elasticity and building up strength in your rotator cuffs and shoulders is going to be kind of like you're feeding two birds with one stone if you approach your accessories like this. Now, you got to leave your ego at the doorstep if you want to do it this way, but it's how all the top lifters do it. We recognize we're strong already, yes. But if you recognize you're strong now and you want to get stronger later, you can't get sidetracked by injuries. So you want to almost have prehab and rehab going on interchangeably while you're doing the biggest range of motion with everything. So stretching under a load, bigger gains later, but it's going to feel a little humbling while you're doing it because you're going to be doing a lot lower weights than you want to, but you'll be having a lot of volume. You'll feel bigger pumps, and in the long run, you'll end up being stronger. And the guy who's just throwing around like big weights and whatnot, they're not going to be going as far as you will because you'll be going stronger. You'll be going smarter and stronger than they will. It's almost like an accumulation effect. You're building compounding interest by treating your body right, having the stretch and compression, building the elasticity and strength in your muscles at the same time, because you can have your muscles outpace your ligaments. And when that happens, you can explode really hard. Your ligaments don't catch up and they just snap off the bone. You need a surgery. You don't want that to happen. Now let's move on to a couple other accessories. The coolest part about accessories for the shoulders, the pecs, and the rotator cuffs is it focuses on the stabilizers of the bench press and all the muscles required to stabilize the bench press. So you end up doing things that look really stupid, but they're really stupid fun. Like the next two accessories, the last two accessories we're going to be talking about is going to be bottoms up kettlebell or bottoms up dumbbell incline bench press. That's going to target the shoulders, the pecs, the full pec, and the rotator cuffs because you're also stabilizing it. Additionally, we're also going to talk about chaos push-ups. Chaos push-ups. They are so fun. They are so enjoyable to do. And all it takes is just bands in a gym. You don't need any weights. You just need your body, and you need bands and a power rack. It's really fun to do once you start doing it, and it's probably why my bench has gone up, because these are really fun to me personally. So this next accessory is called bottoms up kettlebell incline dumbbell press, or incline dumbbell bench, there's a lot of words going on, and I put the sexy in dyslexia, so just bear with me for a moment. It's bottoms up kettlebell or dumbbell incline bench press. A lot of words there. Fantastic. But basically, what you want is a really light dumbbell. The hardest part about this is actually getting the dumbbells up there. And it's going to absolutely fry all of your stabilizers. And all the activation in the stabilizers is going to hit your pec minor, it's going to hit your rotator cuffs, it's going to hit your lats, your core, everything's going to be going into it. Now, I have dumbbells. My gym has a total of 1 kettlebell. You don't want to be doing this with not the same weight on either side. You don't want that much chaos into this going on, because it's going to be hard enough. So I probably should have chalk on my hands, but I'm choosing 10-pound dumbbells. This is actually a heavy weight for this accessory. I think I only worked up to 20 pounds when I do this personally in my own training. I'd have to check my training logs to double check. But basically what you do is you make sure that the dumbbell stays vertical. And it makes sense if you have a kettlebell, making it stay vertical as well. And you just want to perform a dumbbell bench press. Now, you're going to slow down the eccentric and concentric of the movement, because if you press too hard at a wrong angle, the dumbbells are going to flip over. You're going to have a bad time. You might lose a nut. And I personally would rather choose when I get my vasectomy and not just in some sort of gym accident. So you have to have a little bit more control, a little push and pull with your ego with this. And 10 pounds is actually a lot for this. So you want to grab the dumbbells where you basically have the flat part in your palm. And this is the hard part. This is the hard part. This is the hard part, because you want to keep it, you have to get it from your knees to your chest. And that's really hard. You'll probably want a training partner for this, but nobody likes me. So here we go. So you get them up here, and notice how they're not completely stable, because I'm not perfect as a human. Like, you can notice that my left hand, the hand, I don't know if it's mirrored or not, the hand that has my Fitbit on is less stable than my right hand. And that's just from years and years of masturbation. So full range of motion, you want to you want to include your lats in here, so you've got a little bit of a twist going on when you come down, and you'll find the parts of your bench press that are least stable based on how much trouble you have keeping these upright. And just perform dumbbell bench press like this. And you don't want to be cutting your range of motion short. You want as much strength and you want as much power in the largest range of motion as possible. You don't want to neglect any part of this. Whoa. So just perform the dumbbell bench press with the dumbbells vertically. I've personally done this at Planet Fitness before. No one asked any questions. So if you have any sort of excuse as to why you can't do these, they're wrong. And just do it like this. Now, this also works your grip a little bit, because while the dumbbells are swaying like this, you're also working your grippers. And grip is also one of the most important stabilizers when it comes to performing the bench press and the deadlift, because if you can't grip the bar, you can't deadlift it, right? So this is a really fun, a really nice accessory. And once you have it mastered, then you increase the weight. And you're probably going to want chalk on your hands just because of the way the dumbbells are shaped. And when you increase the weight in these, the dumbbells will get bigger and it'll get harder and harder to grip. So it's not a linear progression that's going to be going on with this, because you increase the weight by 10, 15 pounds, the radius or the diameter of the heads of the dumbbells are going to be increased as well, which makes it a little harder to hold on with your hands, a little harder to stabilize. So it's almost like watching your gas mileage increase as you increase your your gears on your car when you're driving a manual car. This next accessory is the Chaos push-up. We have it set up on a power rack with the safeties. We've got a band. We've actually got two bands stretched across the safeties. Now, I'm 332 pounds, so I've got two thick blue bands. The restraints that you want in this movement is enough band tension that you don't touch the floor when you're performing this movement, but not enough that it's not really that elastic. The more bands that you put on this, the easier it gets because it gets more and more rigid. So I personally, this will stretch me about 50 to 75% to the ground. And you can play around with how high off the floor you have this set up. The more and more incline you have, the different parts of your pec you're going to be hitting. But this, you're basically throwing yourself into the wind, almost like one of those bamboo bars, except actually working the stabilizers in a range of motion rather than momentum. So the more stable you are, the easier it's going to look. And the less stable you are, the harder it's going to look and the harder it's going to be. So let me show you with a quick demo. So to perform this movement, you kind of want to treat it like a push-up. It's a Chaos push-up. And the Chaos is going to be provided by the bands. You want to take your standard push-up position, but you want to use all the cues that you use in the bench press. That means bend the bar. That means emphasize pinky and thumb, but you also want to stretch the band out. That's going to bring your lats into it too. So notice how I'm just standing here and it's shaking a little bit. It's unstable. So perform it. Notice the shake going on. And that's working all the stabilizers that are used in the bench press. And you can use iso holds with this as well to work kind of weak points of your stabilization. So like I have a weak point right here, and notice how much shake is going on. You can probably hear it in my voice. And just working this point until the stabilizers kind of give out. And your body is going to build up an adaptation to the stabilization there by getting the stabilizer stronger. So I mentioned a lot about the stabilizers in the bench press. If your stabilizers are weak, you're going to be in more compromising positions because the rotator cuffs and all those little muscles are much weaker than the bigger muscles. That should be just intuitive. So if you put your body in a position where you're isolating a large muscle mover, such as the tricep, by having an improper touch position on your bench press, you're going to get rid of one of the major movers in that movement, and you're going to put your stabilizers, your rotator cuffs, in a compromising position. And you're not going to be able to bench as much. Your likelihood for injury or some sort of tweak going on just drastically elevates. You want to correct your form. That's the first thing that you want to do in order to stop the stimulus that's causing your rotator cuff, shoulder, and pec pain. That doesn't mean stop benching. That means correct your bench form. And then you want to work on strengthening and elongating, increasing the elasticity of the aforementioned muscle groups, your rotator cuffs, your shoulders, your pecs. That will be through accessory movements, treating them like stretching under a load and progressing them as you get stronger and feel less pain. You got to know the difference between good pain and bad pain, because bad pain is just going to lead you down more of that injury route. You got to take a step back, leave your ego at the door in order to properly assess yourself for how much pain, what kind of pain is going on. Is it just the pain of stretching? Like when you stretch your calves, it's going to hurt a little bit, but you know it's good pain. You're stretching. You want enough weight in your accessories to feel that stretching. And you want to go almost to the limit, but not quite to the limit. Because if you go to that limit, you fatigue yourself, you're going to be beyond that limit. So you want enough stimulus to make sure that you're getting that stretch stimulus. And you want to be able to increase the elasticity of your muscles while building up muscle. So you don't want it too light that you don't feel the stretch and that you're not building muscle. You want enough weight on there that you are building muscle and you are feeling that stretch at the maximum range of motion. So I'm going to give you a little bit of a bonus tip here, because when you're performing dumbbell movements, you don't have the restraint of a bar in between the dumbbells. The dumbbells aren't connected by a bar. Something's not getting in the way of you increasing the range of motion. So when you're performing something like the dumbbell bench, or in this case, the incline dumbbell bench, you want to extend that range of motion as much as possible. Now, I know what you guys are thinking. This is the range of motion, right? No. The range of motion, you spread it. You would have stopped it about here because that's where your chest is, but you want to go to the outside of your shoulders. Now, these dumbbells are kind of small, so I'm struggling to get out there. And as you increase the weight, it gets easier and easier to touch out here. But if you're increasing the weight and you're stopping right here, even where the dumbbells are just not even touching your shoulders, you're not getting that stretch. You're not getting that stretch under a load, and you're going to build up a lot of fatigue in your chest area, a lot of fatigue and stress in your chest area. And just continually doing that's going to develop some sort of tendonitis. And you want to build up elasticity so that the tendons in your pecs aren't constantly under stress and they have time to recover because your muscles are elastic enough to give it that relief from pressure. So performing any sort of accessory with dumbbells, you want to bring it. Now, you don't want to be doing dumbbell flies. You want to, if you're doing incline dumbbell flies, you want to do incline dumbbell flies. But if you're doing incline dumbbell bench, your range of motion should go to the outsides of your shoulders. And you can kind of see, I'm both getting a chest stretch. I'm also getting a tricep stretch here. And also I'm getting a bit of a delt stretch. So this range of motion, I'm actually getting, I have to kind of tuck my lats under to get the full range of motion because they're getting in the way with the bench. I'm getting a good stretch through all the ranges, all the muscles developed in the incline dumbbell bench press. And that's going to end up saving me in recovery time and recoverability, increase my recoverability because I'm building up the elasticity in my pecs, shoulders, triceps. So part of the reason why I post all my training in between these educational, informational, whatever you want to call them videos, is to show you guys that I'm not just talking out of my ass. I implement these stratagem, these concepts in every single training day. Like if you look at every single bench day leading up to the Ghost Clash, ooh, that was a tasty one. I warmed up pre-bench with chaos push-ups. Right after the American Pro 1, at the beginning of the Ghost Clash 3 prep, I had kettlebell or dumbbell or bottoms up kettlebell dumbbell bench that I was doing at Planet Fitness. So it's like, I tell you guys these things and I'm not just saying that they're good and just leaving them there and then doing my own thing. I do these things in my own training. So I'm sharing with you why and how I'm able to get stronger and maintain my strength with a lack of injuries. I lost my train of thought there. I do all this stuff in my own training. I hope you guys follow my advice. I hope you guys take what I've hopefully taught you guys today, what I've spoken about, what I've discussed. You want to fix your form. You want to fix the way that you approach your accessories by increasing the strength in those muscle groups that are in pain. But you also want to increase elasticity by taking the weight down a bit and making sure that you're training them at the maximum ranges of motion. And then also, stop being dumb. Stop replacing water with iced coffee and energy drinks. Actually get hydrated because your body requires water to recover and recover and recover. If you're not getting water in, your muscles get very dry out. Think about spaghetti. How easy is it to snap a piece of spaghetti that's uncooked versus cooked? A cooked version of spaghetti is very hydrated. An uncooked spaghetti snaps really easily. So it's kind of the same concept, except instead of one tiny noodle, all your muscle fibers are tiny noodles. And if they don't have the hydration and the water in their system, they lack electrolytes, all that stuff. And you're just feeding it caffeine. There's a caffeine epidemic going on in the world right now because caffeine is one of the most addicting drugs on the market, legal drugs on the market right now. So everyone's really addicted to caffeine. I'm no exception. I have a cup of coffee every day, but I don't give in to the urges to have a second or a third or a fourth or a fifth. Sometimes I get a second, but you want to feed your body what it needs to recover. That's going to be healthy diet, healthy nutrition, macros, micros, and most importantly, water. Stop dispelling your water with diuretics. Diuretics include caffeine and alcohol. So every time that you have a cup of coffee, have a cup of water. It's not going to be completely one-to-one. It's almost like the rule of thumb, because when you get hungover after a night of drinking, it's because you're dehydrated. So every time you have a shot, have a glass of water. Every time you have a cup of alcoholic beverage, have a glass of water. It's almost like replacing the water that you dispelled with the diuretics. So I've been rambling way too long. I hope you guys learned about the rotator cuffs, shoulders, pecs, and how to keep them healthy and how to avoid pain during bench press. And yeah, if you have any questions, let me know down below. I answer everyone. I respond to everything. I'm still small enough that I'm able to do that. So thank you guys for watching, commenting, liking, sharing with your moms. I don't care about your friends. You don't have to share this with your friends. Share it with your moms. Tell her that I still miss her. I actually forgot my wallet on her nightstand last night. So if she could get that back to me, the line at the store for milk has just been so long. If she could just bring it to me, I'd be greatly appreciative. So have a wonderful day. Patty out. Ramble done.